To ask Masuma to begin with her comment or question that she had at the end of that panel. You know, you can feel it in the room once again as we have been speaking all weekend and peculiarly so today as we land on this Sunday with the final section of this conference. Talk It Over at Mohonk is not just words. It actually lends itself to all of us taking action based on wise, heartfelt solutions to the common issues that we all deal with on this beautiful planet we all call home. And once again, we stand in this knowing. We stand on the foundation stones laid by so many at Mohonk Mountain House over 150 years. And in that tradition, we close out this conference now inviting every voice into the room. Anyone who wants to share what they've been inspired by, what you're taking home, what action will you take? And I still can't get over the text now. I love that. That's right up my alley. So along those lines and whatever else. And already it started with the panel and hearing invitations to speak and the networking that's been going on all weekend. And just want to say, before I give the mic to Philip, once again, thank you to Mohonk Mountain House, Mohonk Consultations, and to the Smiley family, and to the organizing committee, Brad, Lorraine, Sandra, Nina, will you please stand? Nancy, please stand. Yes, heartfelt gratitude from all of us, and if everybody else knew about it, they'd all be saying thank you too.
I just have to say, I haven't cried this much. In a while. I was so deeply touched by these speakers, so deeply touched, and just the purity of heart, the boldness, the humility, the strength, the curiosity. Maybe sometimes, I don't even want to say naivety, because there's a boldness of like, yeah, we can do something, we are doing something, and the deep caring, the vulnerability. I'm deeply inspired, deeply touched, and I just want to thank you. And also, for me, it speaks to this spirit of peace. And here we are in this legacy, and again, so inspired by the Smiley family, having a business that also creates this community, internationally, the impact, that spirit of peace here, the relationship with the land, relationship with local communities, creating the conversations, these opportunities, and now to see that legacy and the youth. I feel I am deeply inspired, hopeful, and I can also, I was also touched by the intergenerational part here. And with climate change, we're all in it together. And so I'm deeply moved and touched and inspired, and I'm grateful, Brad, Mohonk Consultancies, and Smiley family, everyone. So thank you for the good cry. It is so nice to just let the tears flow from inspiration and love, and I'm deeply touched. And I've already reached out. I'm happy to be networking. Invited Casey to write an article that will go out to almost 900,000 people. And it's these networking things. What resources we have, we can contribute to you, help you get your voices out. And again, that intergenerational part, I think, is so key at this time. So that's my brief part. I want to hear more from others.
You did so well with both the inspiration, take home, and action. Good modeling. But exactly, well done. So, Masuma, will you please?
Hi everyone, my name is Masuma. So I just want to say that I was also very deeply moved by the panel's presentation today. And I very much share my feelings the same way as Philip, that I never been to a conference where I felt this much emotional, and it's very, very rare for me to happen. So I wanted to briefly talk about two things. So we heard from everyone here about the notion of social change and the need that every society needs that. I want to remind everyone that social change is our responsibility. So we should not forget, you know, our individual responsibility in committing to the social change. So responsibility, to take responsibility for a mistake we did or an action that we took that caused that, and also the responsibility to do something about it. The second thing I would like to talk about is the importance of partnership. And I spoke about this yesterday during my presentation as well. For me and for all of us actually, especially us who are working on and care about peace building and sustaining peace, we have to think about creating a partnership, especially with our government. Because we didn't get a chance to talk much about their engagement in peace building and development, whether at the local community, national or international. And I think it's so key, because without the government, you're not going to have a citizenship, you're not going to have a driver's license, you're not going to have so many things. And they are the ones who are the decision making, and they are the ones who have the power. And we need to talk to them, we need to engage with them at our own personal and individual or career capacity, and we have to acknowledge that they exist, and we can't just ignore them whether we like them or not. So these are only the two things I wanted to highlight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Diana Zuckerman.
Yay!
She wrote. So I want to say, you know, to the panelists today that all of you give me so much hope for a better world, which gives me so much energy to continue doing all this work with all of you. And I want to thank Mohonk Consultations and Brad and Nancy and Dot for bringing youth into the conference. So what a great idea. And you know, every time that I go to an event or I'm sitting at a table with an organization or with a group, I always encourage them to invite youth. There should be youth. So I would encourage you also, with anything that you're involved with, make sure that you bring youth into the conversations and that they're sitting at the table with us. And I also want to go back to the Mohonk Consultations Peace Conference that I brought students to a couple of years ago. And one of the speakers said that a 5% reduction in military spending would pay for all of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So we don't have to wait until 2030. We could do it next year, or you know, maybe even sooner, and next week. And one of the things that, because I'm a Spanish teacher, so I feel like it's my responsibility as a Spanish teacher to bring this into the classroom, because it's global awareness, and I do say to them, and even if that speaker was exaggerating, which I don't know if they really were, I think that they're probably pretty accurate, but even if they were exaggerating and it's 15%, we could still do it and it's worth it. And I think that that's what we have to bring from these conferences out, that we can do it, it's possible, and it's worth it.
Thank you for another call to action, taking both of you to heart. Starts locally, starts with me, local, community, education, and then yes, it's as our friend Rita Marie often says, it's a bottom-up, top-down, all-around approach.
And with the youth, you know, there used to be the saying, youth are the future, and one friend who's been working with youth peace building for years, he's like, no, youth are part of the present.
Exactly.
Hi, my name is Thomas, and I wanted to pose a question for which I don't expect an answer, but it's a question that I think we need to ponder about. And that is that I have not once this weekend heard the word capitalism, nor the word socialism. These words have meaning, they're booted about and argued about, but I think it's interesting that we've not used those words. And I'm wondering if that's a conscious, deliberate choice. Is it fear? Is it a wise choice? Has it been discussed to not use those two words? Because the problem is not climate change. It's not racism. It's the fact that a very, very few people make all the major decisions. And they get there by a highly competitive contest that basically only monomaniacal psychopaths can win. And we're usually presented with a choice between two monomaniacal psychopaths. And I wanted to just share one thing personal, and that is that I really identified with, I've forgotten your name already, who grew up in Brazil. Because I felt not smart enough too, growing up. But the difference is that my great-grandfather was the CEO of a corporation and founded the local bank, and my father went to Yale and taught at Harvard. And I didn't think I was smart enough. And I knew a lot of rich people growing up, because we summered in a place where a lot of rich people. And by the time I was 10, 12, I had formulated the question, why do the many have to suffer so terribly so that the few can be so miserable? Because when you have more than your share, and you grow up knowing, you knew you had less, I knew I had more than my share, somehow your brain has to justify it. You either have to think, I and all my friends and my parents, and we're all bad people, or you have to think, we're better than everybody else. And you somehow have to cultivate that idea of superiority. By the time I was 16, I opted for the I'm bad option. And that wasn't a great option, but it was probably better than the I'm better option. So that's the question I'm putting to the group, and I hope people will ponder it and think about it.
So, Thomas, first of all, you're an awesome dance partner. Many saw us dancing in the back Friday night. And anybody who can dance like that and lead like that so subtly, yeah, all good as far as I'm concerned. But in terms of your initial statement, and it does tie to what Isabelle said about oppression and all of that, Philip and I have been to numerous meetings, events, conferences, online, offline, in-person, big groups, small groups, for a long time now. And I'll speak for myself, but I think I speak for both of us when I say that when we choose to address in a conference like this, the capitalistic this, the other that, I'm not afraid to name all that, and the economic, appalling economic conditions, and the all systems breakdown that I mention a lot. I don't always name all the pieces, but my heart knows all the pieces. I'm standing in the old system when I'm talking like that. That old system is breaking down. And when Isabelle was sharing, and then she shared her story, she is stepping through, across that threshold in such a powerful and daring and fiery, loving way. To name that system, it is fast being removed. And that is happening because of the likes of you and me and Isabelle and everybody in this room and on the planet who are standing up and saying, wow, this is how the human journey has happened for a gajillion years, and each time we hit one of those thresholds, and I will submit that this threshold is as dramatic and painful as the Western world has ever seen, and I say Western only because I'm going to mention Dark Ages, but the whole planet knew about Dark Ages, from the Dark Ages to the Renaissance. And we are on another such threshold, only it's the entire planet. What is the next Renaissance? That is the language I am choosing to use to speak through that lens, because I'm with Bucky Fuller. I'm helping to create the model that makes the other one obsolete. And thank you. Thank you for putting it in the room.
My name is Jill Olesker, And I just wanted to comment that two things. One, that I feel like the whole conference really was a living, like a concrete example of how everything is interconnected. Because just from one moment to the next, and I'm so glad we ended with the youth today rather than putting them at the beginning in a way, because it just, that was moving on such a hopefully visceral level, but really the whole conference, it just seemed like one moment flowed into the next in a way that's not didactic. You know, there's so many places you go where you're being preached to from up here, and this was not that experience. And as a storyteller, which I am, I appreciate that. You know, in storytelling, you don't think in a linear way. You think in a, I don't even know what that realm is, but it's not linear. And the other thing that I wanted to say was that, and this is very new for me to say something that I'm doing in a way, but I'm being a little fearless for me personally. I'm trying to start a new project for the very young children called Seeding Peace. And it came out of wanting to help children understand that peace is a choice. It's actually from a collection of stories that a wonderful storyteller, Margaret Reed MacDonald, has, and she made the collection because she wants children very young to understand that peace is a choice. It doesn't just happen. You have to work hard for it, but if you work hard for it, you have a probable outcome of getting it. And that project is now growing organically to include children finding peace in themselves and with nature and in the climate and sustainability. I mean, really, peace is everything.